There is a moment that happens in almost every relationship a man has ever been in, and he will rarely, if ever, talk about it. Not to his friends over beers. Not to his therapist, if he even has one. Not even fully to himself most of the time. It is not about sex. It is not about looks. It is not about the thrill of the chase. Every dating coach on the internet has worn that phrase out. This is something deeper, something almost embarrassing for him to admit. Because admitting it means admitting he is not as self-sufficient as he wants you to believe. So by the end of this video, you are going to understand the real fantasy hiding underneath almost every man's confidence, his jokes, his "I am fine." And more importantly, you are going to know exactly what to do with that information. Because used well, this isn't manipulation. It is the fastest way to build a bond most couples never reach in their entire relationship. Here is something nobody tells men growing up. They're trained to be the answer, not the question. Fix it, carry it, handle it, don't flinch. From a young age, most men absorb a message, sometimes loud, sometimes silent, that their value is tied to performance. What you provide, what you solve, what you can carry without dropping. So when something deeper rises up, a need, a longing, a soft spot, it gets buried fast, usually before he even has the language to name it. And that is exactly where this fantasy lives. Buried under competence, here it is, stripped of everything subtle. Every man secretly fantasizes about being fully seen, flaws, fears, off days, and all, and still being chosen, not tolerated, not loved despite. Chosen because of, not in spite of. He fantasizes about a woman who doesn't need him to be invincible in order to feel safe with him. Someone who can watch him have a bad day, lose his patience, freeze up in a hard conversation, or simply not have it together. And instead of quietly losing respect or pulling back, leans in closer. That is it. That is the fantasy. Not a woman who worships him. Not a woman who needs rescuing, a woman whose trust in him doesn't evaporate the second he stops performing. It sounds almost too simple to be a fantasy, but it is one of the rarest things to actually experience in modern dating. And that scarcity is exactly why it functions like a fantasy instead of a basic expectation. Let me give you a picture of this, because it is easier to feel than to explain. Imagine a guy, let's call him Daniel. Daniel is the friend everyone calls when something breaks, car trouble, moving apartments, a 2 a.m. crisis call. Daniel shows up. He is the reliable one. His girlfriend loves that about him. She brags about it to her friends. But one night, Daniel comes home from a brutal week at work. He is short with his words. He forgets to ask how her day was. He is not the reliable one tonight. He is tired, a little lost, a little human, and in that moment, something in her face shifts. Not anger. Exactly. Disappointment. Like she just met a stranger wearing her boyfriend's face. Daniel notices. He always notices. So he does what most men do. He apologizes, resets, and becomes reliable Daniel again by morning. But somewhere underneath, a quiet question gets left hanging in the air. Would she still be here if I couldn't hold it together? He will probably never ask her that question out loud, but it is the question underneath the entire fantasy no picture, a different version of that same night. Same tired, short, tempered, off. His game, Daniel walks through the door. Same forgotten, how was your day? But this time, instead of disappointment, she just looks at him and says, rough one, huh? Come here, no fixing, no lecture about communication, no silent scorekeeping for later, just room made for him to be off without losing his place in the relationship. That is the moment that quietly rewires a man's nervous system around a woman. Not the vacation, not the perfectly timed text, not the lingerie, that moment right there. Here is a truth most people get backwards. Men don't fall the hardest for the women who make them feel desired. They fall the hardest for the women who make them feel safe enough to stop performing. Desire is easy to manufacture. Lighting, mystery, a great outfit desire can be created in a single evening. But the kind of safety that survives a bad mood, a bad week, a bad version of him, that is earned. It is rare. And it is exactly why it becomes a fantasy rather than a normal expectation. Most men have never fully had it. A few have had glimpses of it. Almost none have had it consistently over years. From one person now, here is where a lot of advice goes sideways. People hear, men want to feel needed, and assume the move is to act helpless, play small, manufacture problems for him to fix, so he feels important. That is not it. That is actually the opposite of this fantasy. He doesn't want to be needed because you can't function without him. That is not safety. That is pressure wearing a disguise. Now, he can never afford an off day because if he has one, the whole structure depending on him starts to wobble. What he actually wants is to be trusted, not required. There is a real difference between I need you because I can't do this without you, and I want you because being with you makes my life better, even though I know I could survive without you. One is dependency. The other is desire built on respect. Only one of those holds up the moment he stops being at his best. Let's go one layer further, because this is where the real insight lives. Underneath this fantasy is usually a quiet fear most men carry and almost never name out loud, the fear of being loved for what I do, not for who I am. Think about how many men were praised growing up almost exclusively when they achieved something, the good grade, the winning shot, the promotion, the paycheck. Affection and approval came attached to output. So a part of him learned early and wordlessly, my worth is conditional. Perform and you'll be accepted. Stop performing and you might find out exactly how conditional that acceptance really was. That is the wound this fantasy is quietly trying to heal. Not I want a woman who needs me, but I want proof that I am not just useful to someone, I am valued by them. So here is where this becomes something you can use, not just something interesting to think about. If you want to build the kind of bond this fantasy is really pointing toward, here are 3 things that do more than any grand romantic gesture ever could. First, when he is off, resist the urge to immediately fix or analyze him. Don't turn his bad day into a project that needs solving. Just be a place he can land. A simple, that sounds heavy, does more for real connection than any well-meaning advice ever will. Second, notice and name his character, not just his actions. Most men get thanked for what they did. Thanks for fixing the sink. Thanks for driving. Almost no one tells them who they are. Try this instead. You handle pressure better than almost anyone I know. That sentence reaches a part of a man that thanks for doing the dishes never touches. Third, let him see that your respect for him isn't fragile. If he messes up, disagrees with you, or has a moment of doubt, and your response is curiosity instead of instant judgment, you become rare to him. Not because your standards are low, but because your respect is rooted in who he is, not in a perfect streak of performance. On the flip side here is what destroys this faster than almost anything else, keeping a silent scoreboard of his weak moments, bringing his bad week back up 3 arguments later as evidence against his character, comparing him even jokingly to men who seem to have it more together. Every time that happens, he doesn't just feel criticized. He feels confirmed in the fear that the acceptance was always conditional, and the conditions have just been violated. Here is the shift I want you to walk away with. This isn't about babying men, lowering your standards, or being endlessly patient with disrespect. There is a difference between holding space for someone's humanity and tolerating bad behavior. Never confuse the two. This is about understanding that the strongest bond you can build with a man isn't built on his best days. It is built on how you handle his worst ones. and whether he walks away from those moments feeling smaller or feeling more like himself. Because here is the truth almost nobody says out loud. Men don't actually want a woman who needs saving, and they don't want a woman who needs nothing from them either. What they want is a woman next to whom they don't have to keep proving they deserve to stay. That is the fantasy, not weakness, not heroism. Just being fully known and still wanted. If this gave you a new way of seeing the men in your life, past or present, tell me in the comments. Have you ever had a Daniel moment, a time someone made space for you to be off, and it changed how safe you felt with them? And if you want to understand the other side of this, the small things men do that quietly destroy a woman's trust without either of them realizing it, that is the next video. So make sure you are subscribed before it drops.